Some of my favorites as well, I guess one of my favorites of all time is Lonesome Dove and The Godfather, and then with Horton Foote and when I played the country singer in that. We used to go to Cromwell's drugstore in New York, me, Gene Hackman, and Dustin Hoffman, and we'd meet once a week and talk for like 25 minutes to half an hour. If we mentioned Brando's name once, we mentioned it 50 times. He was kind of like our hero, our godfather. He was really a very unique guy. So, we kind of looked up to him and so forth and so on.
Welcome to Successful Living with Bill Knapik. Every week we talk with interesting people in a variety of professions, and along the way, get ideas to enhance success in all categories of your life. Successful Living with Bill Knapik starts right now. And here's your host, Bill Knapik.
And here he is, writer, producer, director, and one of the greatest actors of all time, Robert Duvall.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Well, we are you have been our most famous guest that we've ever had on this show, and thank you so much, and certainly thanks to our mutual friend, Danny Davis, for making this possible.
Yeah, Danny Davis, he's got 9 lives, that guy.
He really does. There's no doubt about that. And you are distinctive in so many ways. And when I found out that you're going to be on the show, every night it's been a Robert Duvall marathon. So I'm watching something every night. So
okay. Whatever. Some good and some bad. I made some lemons, but I've been in some good ones too, I think.
The range of your work in terms of the type of roles and then the decades that you have been in the acting world. Give us an idea of some of the things that are most memorable to you in this year.
Well, some of them more memorable, some of my favorites as well, I guess one of my favorites of all time is Lonesome Dove and The Godfather, and then with Horton Foote and when I played the country singer in that. Also, one of my favorite parts was when I played a Cuban barber in Wrestling Ernest Hemingway with Richard Harris. I worked on that Cuban accent for a long time. That's one of my favorite. And also, one of my favorite parts and the most difficult was when I played Joseph Stalin. And, we filmed it right in the Kremlin in the early 90s.
Wow.
That was very, very memorable and very, very great part to play. Because it's an infamous guy, I've always tried to be versatile, but then I've come up on things that they offered. I said, I don't think I can do that because I don't know how I would approach it to make it valid, So, but I've always tried to be versatile and do things that are varied, interesting challenges.
The range of characters that you have played, as I've been refreshing, watching some movies I've seen a long time ago, the range of acting and the different kind of characters, and to do so well with each and every one of them. As an actor, what are the things that your systems or whatever you're doing to be able to be consistently awesome in everything?
Well, you have to go from yourself. You don't become something else. You find those aspects of your own personality and individuality that fit whatever you're trying to get. So, it's like you got to really know yourself, because you only have one set of emotions, one psyche, one mind, and one temperament. So you just got to know how to exploit that in a legitimate way and use it to your advantage within whatever you're asking yourself to do. For instance, when I did Apocalypse Now, I had a part that may have been offered to others. I don't know. I told Francis Coppola, I said, I'll only ask you once. They let me to do it. I wrote him a letter, and he gave me the part. And when I got there, the part was way overwritten. It was called Colonel Carnage. And it was a cowboy hat and this and that. And I said, this is way off. So it was a guy named Dick White who had been in Vietnam. And we talked, and after about 20 minutes, I kind of knew what to do. He very much informed me on what the air cavalry was, as opposed to, in the 1800s, it was the horse cavalry, then the tank cavalry, and then in Vietnam it was the air cavalry with helicopters. And Fort Hood has a museum to these guys that wore these kind of hats with cross sabers. They wore spurs, and they had their own kind of collective identity. And I went from there to form and Coppola's the kind of guy that always lets you be creative and try things. It was an interesting challenge for me, But it's been a long time since we've done that, 35 or 40. And his final edit was about a year ago. After all these many, many years, Coppola is still working on the edit. Yeah.
Well, by the way, there are so many things about that scene, and one of them is you are in super shape. A lot of that, you have your shirt off, the hat, and what's interesting is the way you're talking to Lance, the surfer, and I just watched this last week, and that's the reason I reached out to Danny Davis, because I said, man, I saw Robert in the Apocalypse Now, Lieutenant Colonel Kilgore. Is there any way we can get him on the show? But the way you played that character as the bombs are going off and all the action, and yet you're focused and in command, and you're talking surfing.
Right, exactly. Well, I hear that there was the Six-Day War over in Israel. When the war was over, they couldn't find the head general or colonel, whatever he was. He was snorkeling. So these guys, and these air cavalry guys were the same way. They would do crazy things with these helicopters that the Marines I've talked to said, well, that didn't happen. Well, it did. They didn't go by the book. They kind of did their own thing. And I heard that they would go across the North, Vietnamese line with a helicopter. They'd hook a bicycle with the front of their helicopters and steal them. They did crazy things, these guys. And so we tried to get that within the confines of a certain sense of film reality, But, having been in the service myself, I remembered the special service officers and the way they related and talked to one another and so forth. And, I didn't want to, compromise or do anything to belittle or caricature these guys. It was enough of a thing that they were right on the edge, anyway. I didn't want to make it anything a caricature. And we had to loop the lines. You loop the lines somewhat afterwards, and we had to do it because the noise of those helicopters was so intense. We had to recreate the sound by looping the lines. We did that twice, I think, But Coppola, he allows you to come up with stuff, and he was great to work with Coppola. He's one of the all-time greats, Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Apocalypse, and a few others. He's a great director, that guy.
No question about it. And, of course, you were working with Marlon Brando. What was that like? I think you've been in at least three movies with Marlon Brando.
We used to go to Cramo's drugstore in New York, me, Gene Hackman, and Dustin Hoffman. And we'd once a week and talk, and for like 25 minutes to half an hour. If we mentioned Brando's name once, we mentioned it 50 times. So he was kind of like our hero, our godfather. He was really a very unique guy. So we kind of looked up to him and so forth and so on. I had no direct scenes with him, although they say he came down in the jungles of the Philippines to do that, driving a baby blue Mercedes. He always had his own lifestyle aside from the business itself, So many stories came out of that.
Well, you've had an unbelievable career. Before we move any further, as you mentioned your military service, certainly we thank you for all the entertainment you've provided people listening, but thank you for your service in the United States military as well.
Oh, yeah, well, my dad had served in me. He went to the Naval Academy when he was 16 years old off a farm from Virginia, my dad. So, we've always, not that I'd ever wanted to be in the military myself. As a matter of fact, as a military family, they were the ones that kind of pushed me into acting because I wasn't doing too well in school. So they said, well, why don't you try that? And kind of things, everything reversed itself in my favor.
They must have known. They must have had a feeling about it because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Why did you choose acting as your profession?
Well, they kind of pushed me as an expedient thing. It was the end of the Korean War, and to get through school, I went to a small college in southern Illinois. The Pomerantz family had a summer theater in Bellport, Long Island, and so I went and did quite a few summers, a lot of plays, and so did a lot of theater before I got into film or television, you know. So, but it's all related. They're all connected, you know, whatever the mediums are.
And kind of start going back to Apocalypse Now, certainly Martin Sheen was in that, but many people may not know right now you have a new project, I don't know when it comes out, called The 12 Mighty Orphans,
Yeah.
and Martin Sheen's in that as well, plus other killer actors.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him in years to give a big hug. And, because, you know, when we did Apocalypse, he had a heart attack.
I heard.
And but he lived, and but I think Coppola got a lot of outtakes from other movies that he'd done in case he died. You could still salvage his performance, you know. But the 12 Mighty Orphans was a wonderful project. I don't have much to do. I said, I'll come down and be in it, but don't give me a script. Let me do a little bit of an improvisation, which we did. You know, it's not a big part at all. And I'm about to go up and do another part, not a big part, but a nice movie with Adam Sandler up in Philadelphia, a movie about basketball. So I'm kind of getting ready to do that and looking forward to that, to work with him. He's such a wonderfully unique guy, Adam Sandler.
That should be exciting. Give us an idea when you approach, and as I said, every role, there's something there. And when you said earlier about you bring parts of yourself into the role. In The Judge, you're tough. When you were the father of Sling Blade, you were stubborn and tough. You have a twinkle in your eye. You're bringing all these emotions to it. And that's what makes, to me at least, so exciting to see you work. The new project you're working with, how do you prepare, or any of these projects, how do you prepare?
You just follow the script and, and just follow the logic of the script. That's the way I always feel about it, and see where it takes you. See where it takes you without trying to go to a result. You get the result by just letting it come from you in a very evolutionary way rather than going for it, moment to moment. Talk and listen and talk. That's the end and the beginning of it all. Beginning and the end of it all. You're just talking and listening, like we're doing now. Like people say, "Oh, well, you're just doing this, playing yourself." Well, try it. It's not that easy necessarily to be that relaxed. It's like my old friend who died recently, Wilford Brimley, who was a wonderful actor, said, "When I say action, you better come up with something." And I say, you better come up with something by not trying to come up with something, necessarily. Kind of let it evolve from the simple process of you talk, I listen, and vice versa.
Like you're saying, the relaxed. When you look at a script, though, I'm guessing it's black and white, paper with words on it. And as you read that, Mr. Duvall, what does the character? Do you start thinking how to be that character? How does that work?
No, you don't think about becoming. You let it come from you. It's got to come from you, And like I said, you can't become something without. You let it come from yourself. It's got to come from yourself.
We're talking with the one and only Robert Duvall, one of my favorite actors. Last night, I was watching 7 Days in Utopia. I've seen that before. I watched it again. And first of all, that movie has just great life lessons anyway. But I was thinking as you're tremendous in that. And, of course, I had the scenes of you riding horses in other movies as well. So riding horses has been a part of your life these many years, I guess. But as I thought about the young actors and actresses that were in that show with you, thinking that, wow, I'm with Robert Duvall, one of the legends, just like me talking to you, just on a phone conversation for a radio show. Were you ever intimidated along the way early on, maybe when you were working with people that were more famous than you at the time, or how does that work?
Intimidated, but looking forward to the pleasure of doing that. You know what I'm saying? Brando or Olivier or different people, and also people younger than myself. There's some fine young actors, You look forward to that, yeah. And when I worked with Richard Harris, that was terrific. He's such a great storyteller, the funny stuff that he would tell. You treat each thing a little different, a little different. When I did the Preacher Project that we brought, or was it Miranda Richardson over from England, and Horton Foote, who also gave me wonderful help when I was coming up, said, "Now, where did you get that non-actress?" I said, "No, she's a professional actress from London, England, playing a Texan." He thought maybe she was a Texan I picked up somewhere. Because when I direct, sometimes I like to use non-actors or first-time actors. You know, one of my favorite films that I directed, a lot of people don't know, it was where I used a young gypsy boy, True Gypsies, and only one professional actor. It worked out pretty good, you know. Every time I see Martin Scorsese, who I don't know well at all, he mentions that movie that I directed called Angelo, My Love.
Mm.
With a true little gypsy boy. He was so good, I can't tell you how truthful he was, that kid.
What the camera captures and how we as watchers and listeners relate to it.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. It's each one is different. Each one is different, and you try, like Scott Cooper, my friend, the director, says, just do it. We'll capture it, whatever it is. Don't go for the result. Just go for the reality of talking and listening, and a camera will pick that up. You know, the camera will pick that up.
That's great advice for any profession.
Yeah. And Gene Hackman, he was a terrific friend and a wonderful actor. He's retired now in Santa Fe somewhere down there. Talked to him in years and years. But we used to paddle around in New York, he and I, and then Dustin Hoffman, who came in later from California to live in New York. That's a strange connection because Adam Sandler, we talked on the phone the other day, he's now a very good friend of Dustin. I was a friend of Dustin way back, you know. And we've lost a little bit of contact, and I still keep in touch with a few actors, not a lot. Jimmy Caan, James Caan is a wonderful actor. We keep in touch, he and I. He's such a funny, Brando loved him because he was so funny, Jimmy Caan, just a funny guy.
You could see that, yeah.
So it's a big community, but there's connections all over the place with each other. I hadn't seen Marty Sheen in years. Gave each other a big hug, and it's nice to see him again. Yeah.
You mentioned Gene Hackman, and there's a lot of things about Gene Hackman that are great. And like I said about you, he too has that twinkle in his eye, and it shines forth on the screen or TV wherever you're watching him. And the other night I watched The Judge, and there's Billy Bob Thornton. Now, Danny, our friend says that you're kind of buddies with Billy Bob. Tell us a little bit about that.
I always said Billy Bob Thornton puts Tennessee Williams in the back seat. Billy Bob called him the Hillbilly Orson Welles. This guy is so talented. He and his writing partner initially years ago drove all the way from Arkansas to New York to start their lives in their career. They stayed in New York 8 hours and turned around and drove away and never went back. Wow. And Billy Bob's one of a kind. When Nikita Mikhailkov was over years and years ago, about 25 years ago, I known him when I met him when I played Stalin, and they accepted what I did. You know, they said that I did okay. And I brought Billy. I said, "Here's Billy Bob Thornton from Malvern, Arkansas, and I want you to meet this great director from Moscow." So the two met. We had a long conversation and lunch. It was just terrific. But Billy Bob, he's, without being cliche, he's a real thing. He's very bright, extremely bright, and so talented, natural actor. And I said, Billy, how come you haven't made any movies anymore? He said, I haven't made it because nobody sees them. But I guess he'll get back to directing. He's a terrific director and, plus a wonderful actor. He's into a little bit of music now, but he's one of a kind, I tell you, very much so.
He really is great. And as far as music goes, you do a little singing as well. Like the other night, again, every night it's a Robert Duvall night for me lately. I watched A Night in Old Mexico, and as the movie ends, you're singing the Mexicali Rose.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know all the words, but yeah. We figured we'd sing a song driving along in a car, and that's the song I came up with, We had a nice Spanish director from Spain that directed that, and he said, "Oh, that's fine. Just sing a song, and what you do driving along. It was a nice film to do in Southie. I like working in Texas a lot down there. That's over there in Brownsville.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, other than acting, writer, producer, director, what's your second favorite? Assuming that acting may be your first favorite thing to do.
Oh, I don't know. I like to hang out with my wife and with our 2 dogs and just take it easy, exercise some and drive around, visit with people, hold some court, for sure, yeah. And, I've had hobbies. Yeah, you have hobbies, and more hobbies to fill in, And you could tennis at one time, horseback riding at another time. We did a movie on the tango. I like to do the club tango dancing, and like they do the club tango dancing in Argentina, the way they do the 2-step in the clubs in Texas. It's a club dance other than just an exhibition dance. So I like the music of that, and different kinds of. My brothers were both professional singers. One was a leading tenor for the Gridiron, for the president every year, and my other brother sang opera out in Wisconsin, and he had gone to Europe on a scholarship. But I just and that thing that Ken Burns did recently was so brilliant. That thing on country music,
Right.
Did you see that?
I did see it. Yeah, it was tremendous.
Oh my God, it's terrific. And I hear there's a new documentary out, just came out on Johnny Cash, and my wife looked it up, said that I'm in it, so I'm looking forward to see what that was. Because when I did Tender Mercies, Horton Foote's Wonderful Spirit, I got to know Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, some of these guys, they accepted what we did in the movie, which was nice. You meet certain people that you rub elbows with to get to at least, try to gain a little expertise from them.
That's right. We learn from everybody. And for those that don't know, you met your wife on the set as you were filming Assassination Tango.
No, I knew her before.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I knew her before. In fact, there was another girl who was going to play the part, and she said, the girl was kind of haughty, if you think she's going to play it, do it. So my wife studied for 1 year, dancing. We did acting, improvisation, wherever we'd go, and she stole the show. Acting student stopped her on the street and said, my acting teacher said, if you want to see pure acting, go see what Luciana did in that movie. She was just terrific,
Yeah, that's awesome.
So she's very supportive of what I do and extremely helpful, She's younger than I am, but like Wilford Brimley says, listen, my friend, the worst thing in the world for an old man is an old woman.
Oh, no. And there you go. That is part 1 of my interview with Robert Duvall on Successful Living with Bill Knapik. Part 2 you can hear next week right here, Successful Living with Bill Knapik. And you can hear part 1 again or any of the shows on my YouTube channel, which you could simply go to my website, radiobill.net, radiobill.net. This interview will be featured on there and so much more. And we'll see you for part 2 next week. Thanks for listening.